Hey guys, it's Adrian here. I hope you had a great 4th of July weekend. Lots of fun with family and friends and all that stuff. It was really, it was nice seeing everybody on our end here. Just relaxing, didn't do much, but sat around with some friends, had a big barbecue, and just enjoyed a day with some good folks. For those of you who wished my mom Annie a happy 91st birthday on July 2nd, we appreciate that too, and so does she. She was overwhelmed by all the people who were out there telling her how great she is, so that was fantastic. Thank you very much. So the Qs this morning have been, primarily sort of going sideways. That's to be expected after a holiday like this. It's been a little bit more of a challenge to cage up a profitable opportunity in the QQQ itself. The NQU 23, the futures contract, has been very lucrative by contrast. So, 5 contracts on that, and you're into $1,500, $1,600 in profits on a very small move. That on a 1,000 shares of the triple Qs were going to be a lot less. I mean, it was going to be about 30 cents, 40 cents on the Qs themselves. But let's take a look at the charts and talk about what I think is going to happen in the afternoon, where I think this whole thing's going, and then we can sort of regroup and figure out what we think the closing bell strategy should be for the Qs. So let me pull up the charts for you. Here you have it. This is where we are this morning. So we had what looked like a big move out of the gate this morning that just ran through the central pivot, right? Central pivot's right there, got all the way up into S1 and R2, R1 and R2. So it looked like we were going to be off to the races, and then we had a drift back down into the central pivot. And by the time we really started looking at this, after a holiday, after a long weekend, especially like this, I don't like to start until about 9 a.m. Pacific time or noon Eastern. That gives everything a chance to settle in. By that time, we got into the box, and the box is pretty narrow. So we're basically from 370.06 up to 370.63. What I've really been looking for in terms of actually putting the trades on, though, has been a lot of confluence, because we've got the central pivot, but the better confluence line was down here at 369.95, I guess. So once it would make these dips below the pivot line, and got us down into here, and then had the repeat performance here, then the target on this position was up here at 370.63. So whether you took it at the central pivot or at this lower level, kind of depended on what you were trading. So on the futures contract, of course, those little wiggles can look like they're pretty big moves, especially if you're watching the dollar stack up or stack against you. So you're going to want to wait for the better opportunities to come along, because they usually do. Right? We're going to see moves back down into this confluence. There's not super strong confluence there in terms of the volume by price data, but there was in terms of some of the mechanics of what's going on in the market. We got down into the level that we had marked here, and also got down into 2 standard deviations out of the average price. Anytime you've got 2 standard deviations, of course, that means that you're in the 95% confidence interval of the mean. The mean is right here. And what we're expecting is that we're going to get a drift back toward that average. Now, somebody asked me earlier if I was going long and short today. Did I see a short sale opportunity from this level up here and this level up here? I understand the logic. To me, I'm still focused on the fact that we had this big move to the upside, and that just sort of gives me a bias that says, as long as we're over the central pivot and not too far away from the session VWAP, I'm going to stay focused on moves down into support and resistance, especially when we see these 2SD bands narrowing like this, right? So once we see these bands narrowing up like that, that tells us there's a fairly high certainty that we're going to get inflections at those lines, but I'm going to stay on the side that I feel the market is on for the day. I know that the bias from the person I talked to was, well, the market's been pretty neutral for most of the session here, so why not go long and short? It's just harder for me to focus on what's going on that way. So I'm going to keep looking at long side opportunities. I'm going to keep looking at moves higher from the central pivot and from that bottom volatility band there. And as long as everything keeps lining up, I think we've got that as a game plan going into the close. So with that said, let me just say that I think that post-holiday trading is rough, and what it can really do is bait you into a bunch of positions that you're not really seeing. And again, what you need to do is focus on whether or not you're trading. If you're trading futures, if you're trading Qs, how it is that you can stack up um, the profit opportunity and avoid a bunch of risk. So you don't want to go, real heavy on the QQQ on the stock side, on the ETF side, and focus on some really big profit objective that maybe isn't there. If you're using the futures, you can certainly add contracts, but then what you should do is look at your ETF and use that as the basis for where would my stop be if I was trading the stock, right? Where would my stop be on the ETF, so that you're not going and over leveraging. That's the big danger with futures, is people like that leverage. You can trade 5 contracts of this thing, almost 6 contracts of this thing with $100,000 account, and that makes it very, very tempting to just go all in. So what I would say is use caution, especially when the range is narrow like this, and don't let the thing get away from you. Don't look at a trade and say, well, I liked it here, but I'm gonna try to grab it, let it go a little bit lower, and let it go to next support, and let it go. Just honor your stops, honor your targets, and you should be okay. All right, so I will see everybody. This is a really short week, so I'm going to see everybody tomorrow morning. This is just going to be basically a Thursday, Friday kind of a trading week, but it's kind of nice to have a summer break as well, right? All right, you guys, have a great rest.